Let's bring our first guest on. And Scott, are you there?
Yes, I am.
How are you?
I'm doing fine. I
Well,
hope you are
good.
too.
Well, happy holidays. Did you have a good one?
Yeah, we had a good one. We avoided the snow on the East Coast, but it's very cold here.
I know. Now, where are you exactly?
Well, right now I'm in Virginia, Western Virginia in the mountains,
Oh,
but I'm
pretty.
usually in Washington, D.C., so
Uh,
it's a nice change.
wow. All right. And tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've been working in the public health arena for many, many years, a lot of focus on tobacco issues. I was the vice president of the American Heart Association for many years, and I have been pushing for many years to try to get effective FDA oversight over the tobacco industry and its products. And we are at a real sort of interesting transition point right now. So it's taken 30, 40 years of my efforts and other people's efforts, but I think we're on a path where we can reduce smoking in this country to minimal rates.
Did you ever smoke?
No, I never did.
Okay.
Never did.
I never did either.
I did puff on a pipe once in a while when I was in college.
Okay. Okay. Why your interest in this? Is there a journey that's behind it?
Well, when I went to work for the Heart Association, I obviously was concerned about cardiovascular disease, but also cancer and other things. And I realized that so much in our society we can change ourselves. By better lifestyles, stopping smoking, changing our diets, exercising more. And it just seemed to me that with a country that spends billions and billions on healthcare costs and lost productivity because of bad habits and bad products out there, that we could do something about it and have a positive impact on society as a whole.
Okay. So you spent a lot of your life doing this, correct?
Yes, most of my life, most of my professional life, yes.
Right. And so it's interesting. I mean, you think that they put the price of cigarettes so high, and yet that doesn't really matter, does it?
Well, it does matter. There's been progress made. There's no question. We have a lot of laws now in place that prohibit smoking in public places, in office buildings, on airplanes, and everywhere else. We've also raised the taxes on tobacco products significantly over the years. So it's had some impact, but we're clearly not doing enough. And what is beginning to happen is people are beginning to realize that there are other products out there that are significantly lower in risk, but we're still sort of treating all tobacco products as equally harmful, and that's just not the case anymore. A lot of people have a perception that it's the nicotine that causes cancer and all the disease, and that's not the case. It's the deadly cigarette. When you light something on fire and you suck it into your lungs, you're going to get a lot of toxic chemicals in there, and that's what's killing people and has been for a long time. We have 480,000 deaths each year in this country because of cigarette smoking. You take the smoke away, and you have products that do contain nicotine, but are 90 to 95% lower in risk than the cigarette. And the public really is not fully aware of the benefits that these products could have in helping them get off the deadly cigarette habit.
Interesting. Now, here's a question, and I don't know if you know anything about this, but are they called vapes? What's the difference? I mean, do you know any knowledge about that?
Yeah, vaping versus cigarette smoking, very, very different technologies. Vaping is really aerosol, water aerosol that has some flavors, chemicals in it, etc., but nowhere near as drastic as you find in a combustible cigarette. There are well over 3,000 chemicals in the smoke of a cigarette. Substantially lower, obviously, when you're inhaling water vapor that has the flavorings plus the nicotine. And again, people are looking for a cleaner source of nicotine. So there is a big difference, and we are beginning to have some discussions in a much more public way involving the FDA about how all these various cigarette products and vaping products and snus products, which are a form of non-combustible tobacco, how they fit on what we call the continuum of risk and how they can be used by people to get off the deadly cigarette habit. And FDA is beginning to move in that direction finally to try to promote or find better ways to give these products, these alternative lower risk products, to consumers, better educate them about what they are and what they are not, with the overall outcome, again, of reducing disease and death because of the cigarette.
Interesting. I do want to remind anybody that's just waking up with us, starting your day in a positive way here on the Kim Pagano Show. We're talking with Scott. Is it Scott Ballin?
Yes. Scott
Okay,
Ballin.
great. And we're talking about 10 reasons. Is that do you have a book?
Do I have a book? No. I've written a lot of stuff. I have some stuff on the websites and everything else, and it's but I haven't written a book yet.
Okay.
I may do that when I actually retire.
There you go. Okay, so so kind of let's start to go through the 10 reasons how kicking your smoking habit will improve your life. I mean, obviously, number one on the top of your list is health, correct?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that's why I got involved in this, and I knew a lot of people who were smoking, and I know people who, even elderly folks who I've known over the years, relatives who smoked, couldn't stop because they were addicted to the cigarette smoke and died prematurely. And I know a lot of people who wanted to give up the habit, but just could not do it. It's easy to say just quit cold turkey.
But it's really a drug, isn't it?
It's tough. It's very tough.
Yeah. So it really is a drug, correct?
Yeah, it is. It's nicotine is a drug, and it's addictive, and no one argues with that point anymore. But caffeine is, different, but it also has the same kind of properties. People get hooked on their caffeine. And I always use the analogy, if we smoked coffee beans, we probably have a lot more lung cancer and other problems associated with the smoke, even though people were getting their caffeine. And the Indians in this country used to make tobacco tea, which was not a combustible product. So they were getting their nicotine, but at the same time, they didn't get all the bad stuff that they found in the smoke.
Wow.
So, I try to get people to understand that it's not the tobacco per se that causes the most death. It's what you do with it. And as I said before, when you smoke it and light it on fire, that's what causes the disease associated with smoking. And if we can get those smokers off those products and onto something else that may have nicotine in it, but we are weaning them off the deadly aspects of cigarettes and giving them an alternative product that they deserve. Right now, we're not doing as good a job on that as we should be. We're not informing people about the differences of these products. I hope our FDA is going to move down a path which they said they would do starting in July to give people more truthful information about these options.
But my question is here we just passed, that smoking pot is legal, and how much safer is that? And do you know anything about that?
Can you say that question again? This line is a little bit breaking up, but.
Okay, smoking pot is actually legal out here now, and what's your thought, and how safe is that?
Well, that's an interesting question, and I think it's going to be something that I think we as a society really do need to address, because I actually mentioned this to Congress a few years ago, saying if you think the smoking problem has been an issue, we need to start thinking about how to deal with marijuana and pot. Should it be regulated? There are different forms of pot. There's combustible pot. There's non-combustible with different levels of THC in them. And, we need to get a better handle and begin to monitor how it's used, its health effects. More studies are needed. But it seems to have taken on a life of its own, and there's obviously a lot of places that are legalizing it and making it available. But I think we need to step back personally and have a better evaluation of the pros, cons, and benefits. Not unlike some of the things with respect to tobacco, where you take a patch or a gum to get your nicotine fix. Even with marijuana, as these different forms, we need to consider what those relative risks are and to start educating people better.
Yeah,
we've got a long way to go on it.
Yeah, well, I totally agree. I mean, you figure it's been under the table for so long, and now, they're putting it on top of the table. You can walk in, buy it, have a card, but the risks of still smoking and driving, we've got to have some boundaries. And I think that the public needs to know what those boundaries are. And have a clear, conscience on what they're doing. Is this okay? Is this allowed? Is this not allowed? Our children, it's almost like, they opened up the damn waters and here we go. But
that's right. I mean, we could see advertising marketing campaigns at some point that were similar to what Big Tobacco did in the days when they were, making it glorious and glorified and sexy and attractive, and also appealing to kids. I mean, we've got to. This is the time to really start sort of talking about what the regulatory framework should look like for marijuana and pot before we get too far down a road where it's hard to go backwards. And,
Correct.
And it's I'm not opposed to it. I used to smoke pot when I was in college,
Right.
like a lot of other people. And,
Right.
And I just, but I
Well,
think
what's
if
really
this is going to be a marketing big business, then I think we need to set some parameters for it.
I totally agree with you. And what's interesting is, and I don't know how old you are, but I remember, there was, pot that makes you happy, pot that makes you eat, and pot now it's for health, it's for moods, it's for depression. Like, how can they tell you which pot is good for which? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things that's going to have to be sorted out because, I mean, there are different strengths, there are different things and flavorings and,
Yeah.
It's a whole spectrum. It's a whole new
It's
issue.
opened up a whole different world.
Yep.
So.
And we should learn from what happened with the issue of tobacco. We're not trying to ban tobacco, but we are trying to ensure that there are proper standards and regulations put in place so that people know what they're getting, and we shouldn't be allowing young people teenagers and even younger, to be able to try this stuff. I think that's going down the wrong road.
Right. I totally agree. So to kind of get this in perspective, Scott, what would you tell my listeners with all the knowledge that you have been working on for most of your life, and how you can, how we can really get a perspective on not smoking?
I think the one of the things that I have fought for all my professional career was to try to get some oversight of the tobacco industry. We have regulatory oversight over our drugs, over-the-counter drugs, prescription drugs, our foods, our dietary supplements. And for a long time, the tobacco industry fought that tooth and nail because they knew that they would have to come clean with a lot of stuff, and they feared lawsuits. Well, we finally got that legislation passed, and there were actually a number of companies that decided to come along and endorse it. And now that we have that oversight, we have an opportunity here now to set some standards for manufacturing that actually will be beneficial to the public and prevent the tobacco industry from making false claims or deceiving people anymore.
Mm.
They know that if they do that and they violate FDA's oversight, they're going to be dragged into court again or have fines slapped on them. And
Wow.
that's a good positive thing. And what also is happening is we're getting a lot of small entrepreneur companies popping up who are manufacturing e-cigarettes and other non-combustible type tobacco products that are forcing the big tobacco companies to move into those new areas under a regulatory regime at the FDA that I think will benefit the public and public health.
I love it. Well, Scott, thank you for bringing it to the surface here on the Kim Pagano Show. And, of course, we appreciate you being here, and Happy New Year. And please share our show with everyone.
Yep. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Scott.